Lanja, don't regret this. The night had settled into a deep, living silence, the kind that came when even the world seemed too tired to move. Outside, the wind passed gently through the trees, leaves brushing together in soft whispers. Inside, the quiet felt different, heavier, closer, as if something unspoken had filled the room and refused to leave. The room remained still, wrapped in the warmth of what had just passed between them. It was not an awkward silence, nor an empty one. It was too full of words, too fragile to disturb. Lanja, you're still here, right? Lanja had not moved. He remained half over Wei Wuxian, their bare skin still pressed together from shoulder to thigh, as though distance had not yet found its way back between them. The faint scent of sandalwood clung to the bedding, calm and familiar, grounding in a way that made everything else feel unreal. Perhaps it was the lingering warmth of the wine in their veins, or perhaps it was the quiet knowledge that tomorrow would change everything. Whatever it was, the world had narrowed until nothing existed beyond the two of them. Being stared up at the ceiling, his breath shallow, uneven. His body had not yet decided what to do with itself, whether to settle or to break apart under the weight of what had just happened. Too close, too real. Nothing about this felt fleeting. For a moment, he said nothing, but his thoughts refused to stay quiet. What just happened? It had begun the way everything always did. Light, easy, touched with teasing. Something safe, something he understood. But somewhere along the way, the ease had slipped. The laughter had quieted, and in its place, something else had risen. Something slower, heavier, something he did not know how to name. The space between them had disappeared, and Lanja, Wuxian swallowed slowly, his throat suddenly dry. Lanja didn't stop. His chest tightened faintly. Wuxian let out a slow breath, but it did nothing to ease the strange tightness inside him. Beneath him, Lanja remained still, but he was not unaware. Every small shift in Wuxian's breathing, every slight tension in his body, he felt all of it. And he did not move. Wuxian's fingers twitched slightly before coming to rest against Lanja's back, the touch light, almost uncertain. He did not want the moment to end, and yet it was too much, too quiet, too filled with things neither of them knew how to say. The silence pressed in on him, heavier with each passing second, until it became unbearable to simply lie there and feel. His lips parted and softly, almost without sound, he called Lan Wangji's name. It was barely more than a breath, but he felt the change immediately. The body above him stilled in a different way, not relaxed, not distant, but alert, attentive, as though every part of him had turned toward that quiet call. Wuxian hesitated for only a fraction of a moment. He already knew Lan Wangji was listening. Still, the words pressed forward, driven by something deeper than thought, something that feared if he stopped now, he would not find the courage to continue. He asked softly if he was being heard. Though even as the question formed, he knew the answer. There was no world in which Lan Wangji would not be listening to him. That certainty only made the next thought harder to voice. He had carried countless questions for Lan Wangji, questions that had lingered at the edges of his thoughts for days. But now, in this quiet, overwhelming stillness, he realized he would be the one saying it, and that alone felt like it was enough. His fingers shifted faintly where they rested, not quite holding, not quite letting go, as he forced himself to continue. Carefully, Haltingly, he told Lan Wangji that there was no need to remain so close. The words came out gentler than intended, quieter, carrying something unspoken beneath them. Not rejection, not quite distance, but something uncertain, something fragile, caught between wanting and not knowing how to bear it. Lan Wangji did not move. His breathing slowed, steady, but his silence carried weight now, heavier than before. Wuxian felt it and swallowed. The words he had just said didn't sound right anymore. He tried to fix it, letting out a small nervous chuckle as if to make it lighter. He began to add that he wasn't complaining, that it wasn't like he minded. He stopped halfway, cutting himself off. Why was he talking like this? Why was he stumbling over words that didn't even mean what he felt? He knew the answer. He was scared. Scared of ruining this fragile moment. Scared of saying the wrong thing and breaking whatever just had formed between them. And more than that, scared that it hadn't been real at all. The thought settled heavily in his chest, quiet but impossible to ignore. What if it had only happened because of the wine? This wasn't just because of the wine, right? What if Lan Wangji hadn't truly meant it? What if, now that the moment had passed, he regretted it? Lan Wangji had helped him again and again, in ways too many to count, in his past life and now in this one. The weight of it had always been there, but in this moment it rose to the surface. So he thanked him, softly, quietly. Lan Zhan, thank you. It had been a mistake. It changed something. Wuxian felt it before he fully registered it. The subtle shift of weight, the slow, careful way Lan Wangji began to lift himself as though preparing to pull away. Just a little, just enough to create distance. And in that instant, something inside him tightened sharply, too fast. The thought came without warning, without reason, only instinct. Before he could stop himself, his hand moved, fingers catching at Lan Wangji's sleeve with sudden urgency. Stronger this time, less hesitant, almost afraid. His voice followed, unsteady, betraying him before he could mask it. Wait, don't go. The words came out softer than the panic that drove them, but the meaning was unmistakable. He wasn't ready, not for the distance, not for the moment to end. Lan Wangji stilled. He did not move away, he did not speak. He simply remained where he was, waiting, as though the choice had never been his to make. Wei Ying felt that stillness settle over him, heavier than before. His chest tightened, breath catching somewhere between wanting to speak and not knowing how. He tried again, the words coming more carefully this time, though no less unsteady. But I didn't mean it like that. He said he had not meant to make it sound like that, had not meant for it to seem as though he was simply offering thanks, as though what had passed between them could be reduced to something so light, so distant. He said slowly that this was not something that simply happened. This wasn't just something that happened. Not to me. I meant it. His voice softened further, dropping into something almost fragile, as if even speaking it aloud might break it apart. The weight of it pressed down on him, settling deep in his chest, and still Lan Wangji said nothing. He remained there, warm, unmoving, listening. That quiet presence only made it harder to stop. Wei Ying called his name again, softer this time, the syllables catching slightly as they left him. The rest followed with hesitation. He admitted that there had been a time when he thought he was imagining it. I thought I was imagining it. Those looks, the way you stayed. The memory seemed to tighten something in him. A faint, breathless laugh slipped out, strained, unable to hide the emotion beneath it. He said his name once more, softly, like something precious held too close for too long. And then, without hesitation, without retreat, he told Lan Wangji that he loved him. Lanja, I love you. The words were simple, but they carried everything he had not understood before, everything he had only just begun to feel, everything that had been building quietly within him without a name. Now it had one, and he gave it to him. Lan Wangji's breath finally left him, slow at first, then unsteady, as if he had been holding it for far too long. Carefully, he lowered himself back down, closing the small distance he had almost created. He settled fully against Wei Wuxian again, gentle in every movement as though afraid even now of doing too much. Then quietly he rested his forehead against Wei Wuxian's neck. He did not speak. For a moment there was only the feeling of his breath, uneven, faintly trembling against warm skin. And then at last a soft sound escaped him, a quiet hum of acknowledgement. It was not distant, not restrained in a way it used to be. It was softer than that, unsteady, touched with something that had finally broken through. Vivusian felt it before he understood it, a faint warmth against his collarbone, something wet. The realization came slowly, almost too fragile to name. Was Lanja crying? Lan Wangji did not move. He kept his head lowered, resting against him, as though lifting it would break something that had only just came together. His breath was uneven, warm against Wei Ying's skin, each exhale carrying something he had held back for far too long. When he finally spoke, his voice was low, quieter than before, but no longer controlled in the same way. He said that he had loved him all along. I have always loved you, since before you knew. There was no hesitation in it, no distance, only truth laid bare at last. Then more firmly he told him that he would not be alone again. You're not alone anymore. I'm here. Vivusian's eyes slipped shut, the weight of it settling into him all at once. His answer came soft, but certain he had never wanted to be. Their arms found each other again, this time without urgency, without confusion. They held on, not out of need, but out of understanding, out of choice. Lan Wangji shifted just slightly, enough to press a slow, lingering kiss to the hollow of Wei Wuxian's throat. It was gentle, almost reverent, but there was something deeper beneath it, something that spoke of years of waiting, of restraint finally giving way. When he spoke again, his voice was quieter still, close enough to be felt more than heard. He said that he had waited for him, and that he would have kept waiting, no matter how long it took. Lan Wangji had not slept, not truly. His eyes had remained open in the quiet hours of the night, fixed on the slow, steady rise and fall of Wei Wuxian's chest. Each breath calm, unguarded, felt almost unreal beneath his gaze. He watched him, the faint twitch at the corner of his lips, as if caught in some distant dream, the loose strand of hair that had fallen across his cheek. Lan Wangji's fingers shifted slightly against the sheets, a quiet instinct urging him to reach out to move it back into place. But he did not. He only watched. 13 years. 13 years of absence, of silence, of holding on to something that had never been his to keep. He had imagined this closeness more times than he could count, only to remind himself again and again that it was impossible, that it was gone. And yet, now it was here. Vivusian lay in his arms, real in a way that left no room for doubt, warm, alive. his presence filling the space that had once been empty for far too long. Lan Wangji's gaze softened, something deep and quiet settling into it. A single thought surfaced, unbidden but undeniable. Mine. Not in possession, not in claim, but in something far more fragile, far more reverent. He is finally here. His gaze remains steady, quietly tracing every detail, every faint mark, every breath, as though committing it all to memory. He did not look away, not even for a moment, until Wei Wuxian stirred. The first thing he felt was warmth, soft sunlight slipping through, brushing against his bare shoulder. It pulled him slowly from sleep, gentle but insistent. The blanket had slipped halfway off at some point in the night. He shifted slightly, still caught in that hazy space between sleep and waking. One leg tangled in the sheets, the other loosely draped around the body beside him, warm, solid, unmistakably real. For a brief second, his mind blanked. What happened? And then it all returned at once, not slowly, not gently, but like a wave crashing over him, leaving no space to breathe in between. Fragments, feelings, moments, kisses that had lingered longer than they should have, breath that had grown uneven, too close, too warm, hands that had held and held back, his name spoken softly, differently, and then that moment, that truth he had not meant to say, and yet had said anyway. The words echoed in his mind, clear and undeniable. He had said it, he had meant it, and now there was no taking it back. His eyes snapped open, and there he was, Lan Wangji, right beside him, already awake, already looking at him. Not just looking, taking him in, quietly, steadily, as though he had been waiting for this exact moment to begin again, drinking him in like water after a lifetime of thirst. Wei Wuxian's throat ached at the sight. His voice came out rough, caught between sleep and sudden awareness, his name slipping out broken and unsteady. Lan Wangji did not respond. He did not speak. He did not even blink. He only continued to watch him, still, unwavering as if afraid that even a single movement might make this moment disappear. He looked like he had been watching him for a long time, hours maybe, which was probably true, and somehow that realization alone was already far too much for Wei Wuxian's morning brain to handle. Heat rushed to his face almost instantly. He shifted under the blanket, pulling it up in a quick, instinctive motion until it covered his chest, as though it could hide more than just skin, like it could hide the fact that he had just woken up tangled in Lan Wangji's space, in Lan Wangji's bed, in Lan Wangji's gaze. His voice came out strained, embarrassed, asking why he was being looked at like that. Why are you staring at me like that? It was meant to sound annoyed. It did not quite succeed. Did I do something embarrassing in my sleep? Lan Wangji only tilted his head slightly. His eyes did not move away, not even for a second. And then, with absolute calm, like it was the simplest truth in the world, he answered, "You are beautiful." Wei Wuxian froze completely. His mind went completely blank for a moment, like something inside him had simply stopped working. Then everything rushed back at once, far too fast to handle. Heat flooded his face. Wei Wuxian snapped his gaze away, clearly flustered, as if looking anywhere else in the world might somehow undo what he had just heard. Lanja had just called him beautiful. Lan Wangji had said that to him. His thoughts stumbled over themselves in disbelief. What the hell? What the actual hell? He looked back at Lan Wangji again, as if expecting the words to somehow change on a second hearing. They did not. He stammered through the words, still visibly shaken, pointing out that Lan Wangji had never spoken like that before. What is wrong with you today? The thought alone seemed unbelievable, and in his flustered state he even joked, half serious, that something was wrong. Perhaps Lan Wangji was possessed. Perhaps he should check his pulse. You're definitely possessed. The attempt at teasing fell short almost immediately, because the moment he reached forward, Lan Wangji caught his wrist. The hold was gentle, effortless, steady, leaving no room to pull away, yet carrying no force at all. He simply held it there. He did not smile, not even a little, but his gaze, it had changed, softened in a way that carried no distance at all, no restraint, only something open, undeniably warm. Something so quiet and full that it almost hurt to meet directly. The kind of gaze that didn't need words. It was the kind of gaze that made it hard to breathe. It was the kind of gaze that could split Wei Wuxian in two. Wei Wuxian muttered under his breath, almost defensively, telling him not to look at him like that. The response came immediately, calm, quiet, asking why. Wei Wuxian faltered, clearly unprepared to explain something he barely understood himself. His free hand moved restlessly, gesturing in a vague frustration as he tried to put it into words. He complained that he wasn't used to this, to Lan Wangji being so close, so openly affectionate, so uncharacteristically gentle in a way he had never seen before. Lan Wangji blinked once, that was all. Then, without hesitation, without the slightest hint of doubt, he told him to get used to it. Wei Wuxian let out a helpless groan and dropped back into the pillows, as if the weight of it all had finally overwhelmed him. He complained that this was too much, that he could not handle this version of Lan Wangji, this strangely open, affectionate side that felt entirely new and far too intense all at once. The reply came quietly. It had always been him. That somehow made it worse. Wei Wuxian dragged a hand over his face, groaning again, half in embarrassment, half in surrender, protesting that Lan Wangji was being far too honest. And yet, despite everything, despite the fluster and the disbelief, he was smiling. Even through the complaints, even as he tried to hide beneath them, the smile would not leave his face. It stayed there, soft, unguarded, real, because for once he did not have to pretend, did not have to question what something meant, or hold himself back from asking, did not have to reach out alone and find nothing in return. Lan Zhan was here, with him, in love. The silence between them had changed. It was no longer heavy, no longer filled with things left unsaid. After a while, Wei Wuxian turned slightly toward him, his voice softer now, quieter in a different way. He asked if he had truly meant it. Lan Wangji did not ask what he was referring to. He already knew. He simply nodded, answering that he had meant all of it. A small breath of laughter escaped Wei Wuxian, light but full, as if something inside him had finally settled. He shifted closer without hesitation, closing the distance completely as he wrapped his arms around Lan Wangji's middle and pressed himself against him, hiding his face against his chest. He said he was glad, and that he had no intention of letting him go. Lan Wangji's arms came around him in return, firm, certain, but quiet in a way he always was. And just as simply he answered, never. The peace lasted exactly long enough to feel real. Then a knock sounded at the room, light, polite, completely unaware of the disaster it was about to interrupt. Before either of them could react, the innkeeper had already pushed it open. A sharp intake of breath followed immediately. The woman froze in the doorway, eyes widening as she took in the scene all at once. The slightly disordered room, the unmistakably disturbed furniture, clothes scattered in a way that suggested absolutely nothing innocent. And most importantly, the two cultivators in bed, clearly disheveled, clearly very much together, and clearly not prepared for company. Her voice came out strangled as she apologized at once, stumbling over her words as she tried to retreat from the situation as quickly as she had entered it. Wuxian shot upright in panic, yanking the blanket up as if it could erase all evidence of existence. His voice came out too fast, too loud, insisting that this was not what it looked like. The denial barely had time to land. Wangji, still perfectly calm despite everything, simply stated that it was exactly what it looked like. There was a beat of silence. Wuxian turned sharply toward him, horrified. His voice cracked slightly as he called his name in pure disbelief, as if betrayal had just occurred at the highest level imaginable. And Lan Wangji remained composed as if he had simply spoken a fact about the weather. The door shut with a hurried flurry of apologies, footsteps retreating almost at a run, as though escaping danger had just become a full-time occupation. Vivusian stared at the door for half a second. Then, with the weight of someone who had just lost all remaining dignity in one single breath, he fell backward onto the bed again. He declared in complete despair that he could never show his face in the town again. "I'm leaving this country." The statement carried the full weight of a man who had just experienced irreversible social collapse. Vivusian groaned into the blankets, still refusing to face the world that had just witnessed his downfall. His voice came out muffled as he insisted, half serious and half mortified, that maybe they should change inns, just for dignity's sake. Then Wangji had already begun to sit up, unhurried, as though the chaos of moments ago had never happened at all. Calmly he reached for his inner robe and began to dress himself with steady precision. He answered simply that there was no need. Wuxian immediately protested, utterly unconvinced, declaring with absolute certainty that there was in fact every need. Wuxian peeked out from under the sheets, eyes following Lan Wangji as he calmly began fastening his belt. Every movement was steady, precise, unbothered in a way that felt almost unfair, as if nothing about the previous night or the chaos in the morning had disturbed him in the slightest. Wuxian muttered under his breath, still half buried in blankets, that Lan Wangji looked almost proud of last night. That made Lan Wangji pause, just for a moment. He turned his head and met Wuxian's gaze directly, and without hesitation he confirmed it. He was. The answer landed far too simply for something so devastating. Wuxian made a strangled sound, immediately choking on air as if his body had forgotten how breathing worked. He called his name in helpless protest, as if that alone could undo the situation. Lan Wangji responded only with a soft acknowledgement, waiting, steady as ever. Wuxian buried his face back into the blanket, voice muffled but increasingly dramatic, insisting that this level of honesty so early in the morning was something he simply could not survive.